republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Also, before we get started on our abbreviated meeting, if we could have the reading of the mission statement, please.
Richmond Community Schools guide students on pathways of learning to a future of limitless possibilities.
And the vision statement?
Richmond Community Schools, a community nurturing mind, body, and spirit to prepare students for lives of choice, purpose, and service.
Thank you very much. And our first item is public commentary. No one signed up? Okay. And we go to our consent items.
For your consideration tonight, we have 3.01, the approval of minutes, 3.02, human resources with the addendum at your desk. This evening, 3.03, accounts payable, and 3.04, our monthly financial report.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the consent items?
I move to approve the consent items with the addendum as presented.
A motion from Aaron, second from Dixie Robinson. Any comments or questions about said consent items? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the consent items signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, we have a few action items as well.
Okay, our first action item this evening is our donations, 4.01. I'm going to ask Mrs. Scalf if she'd speak to that, please.
Good evening. Tonight I ask the board to take into consideration the following donations which were made over the past month by members of our community. Meyer donated bottled water and cookie trays for our all staff welcome back program. Richmond Parks and Recreation donated school supplies from their back to school splash bash. Patton's donated to the We Are Richmond e-learning expo. Primex Plastics donated to the robotics program at Dennis. Ingram Square Donuts, LLC, Express Wash, and Harrington Hoke all donated t-shirts for the Bleacher Creatures at RHS. Patrick and Boucher Tiernan donated to the RHS football team. Weston Bank donated to the RHS cheerleaders. The following donors offered gifts to the RHS girls golf team: Mr. and Mrs. Robert DeMayo, Mr. Jeff Lancaster, Mr. and Mrs. Mike Weichel, Ms. Carol Mayberry and Ms. Betty Coleman, Ms. Jane Vincent, Mr. James Holyfield, Mr. and Mrs. John Cate, Mr. and Mrs. Joe Etherington, Mr. and Mrs. Jim Etherington, Mr. Dean Etherington, Mr. Dan Etherington, and Mr. and Mrs. Tim Laughlin. Community Family Funeral Home donated to the RHS girls basketball team. Mr. and Mrs. Thomas Carlin and Dr. and Mrs. Charles Polence donated to the RHS girls basketball program in memory of Coach Casey Polence. Tonight I ask the board to approve $3,655 in donations, and again we say thank you to those generous donors in our community.
Do I have a motion to approve the donations? Motion from Debbie Moore. Do I have a second? Second from Jeff Slifer. Any comments or questions? Other than also a hearty thank you from the board. Hearing none other, all those in favor of approving the donations signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Okay, our next action item this evening is 4.02, the permission to advertise notices of public hearing, capital projects plan, and bus replacement plan for the 2019 budget. And I'm going to ask Mrs. Scalf if she would speak to that as well.
Good evening. The following items are submitted for your consideration and for approval to advertise by the Richmond Community Schools Board of School Trustees. These are based on the 2019 budgets from Budget Form 1, 2, and Budget Form 3. These are the budget forms required by the State Board of Accounts and also the Department of Local Government and Finance. We are required to post Form 3, the notice to taxpayers in the Department of Local Government Finance Gateway, as approved by the Board of School Trustees. Posting Form 3 also notifies taxpayers of the public hearing on the 2019 budgets that will be held September 12th, 2018, with an adoption date of September 26th, 2018. The 2019 budgets are not being approved by this motion, but the administration will be authorized to advertise levies for the 2019 budgets in the taxing funds. The tax levies, as shown on Form 3 to be advertised, will not be the final levies, which are typically lower. The higher levies are advertised so that the budget process can take into account unknown and uncontrollable occurrences and still provide Richmond Community Schools with all the revenue to which it is legally entitled. Tonight, it is my recommendation that the board approves the request to post the 2019 budgets as expressed in the Form 3 as presented, as well as advertise the public hearings for the capital projects plan and bus replacement plan.
Okay. So do I have a motion to, say it the wrong way, I guess, to give permission to advertise as presented?
I'll make a motion that we, notice to the taxpayers for permission to advertise.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any comments or questions?
I will have, but
Right, this is just permission to advertise, so yeah, obviously going forward, we will for sure have more questions. So hearing no other comments or questions, all those in favor of giving permission to advertise signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and we have an overnight field trip.
Okay, our last action item this evening, 4.03, and I'm going to ask Dr. Reynolds if you would speak to that, please.
Thank you, Mr. Terrell. This evening, I'm asking that for overnight field trip approval for Jeff Gabbard and the Piernan yearbook editors to attend a conference in Pierian, to attend a yearbook workshop in Tennessee. They will leave Friday morning before school and return Sunday before school on Monday. It's a team of 4 students that go down. The top 4 editors go down and they work on curriculum, yearbook curriculum as in design ideas, leadership, photography, headlines, secondary coursework or secondary headlines, and efforts to prepare for the yearbook.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the overnight field trip for Pierian editors?
Make the motion.
Motion from Dixie Robinson, second.
Second.
Second from Aaron Stevens. Any further comments or questions?
I just think we should note that our Pierian has been award-winning for a number of years. So this is a good conference for them to go to get creative ideas to use.
Very good. All those in favor of approving the field trip signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and a little bit of business regarding the teacher appreciation grant.
Yes, so 5.01 is our teacher appreciation grant. I'm going to have Jennifer give you a little bit of background as to why we need to bring this to you tonight, and then we'll ask for additional action on this at our next board meeting after we take it to discussion with REA. But Mrs. O'Brien, if you wouldn't mind speaking to the teacher appreciation grant, please.
In the past, the teacher appreciation grant, an amount was awarded by the state and was distributed to teachers based on their evaluation score of effective or highly effective. Prior to last year, in discussion with REA, we awarded a dollar difference between the highly effective teacher and the effective teacher. The law changed last year, and the minimum requirement is now a 25% difference. We discussed with REA last year. We decided to go with the state minimum. Also required as part of that is the adoption of a policy. We spoke with Ms. McDermott. We'll be taking this to discussion at our next meeting, which is September the 5th, to discuss it again with teachers on an annual basis. But we're not making the recommendation to make any changes from the policy from last year or any changes from the state minimum recommendation of the 25%. We are required, however, to annually review, update, and pass policy language, even if there's not a change that's recommended.
Okay, so I need a motion, or is?
We don't really need to take
can't.
action tonight.
Okay.
Our concern was,
That's right, that's right.
typically, And at times, we don't necessarily go with 2 readings, but we want, for policies, we usually have a first reading and a second reading. So tonight would be considered our first reading of this policy before we have discussion with REA. Because if we wait and have first reading and second, and the board determines they want to have a second reading, but we're past the deadline for the state as far as when we have to get it in. And if we miss that deadline, then we are not, the grant is not available to us. So
Now,
that's why we're bringing it to you
we
tonight.
we just did the dollar difference last year though, right? Or
Year
did we do the
before.
25%?
We passed the policy on September the 13th.
I saw that and I didn't
Right, of
remember that.
2017. So the state due date this year is September the 14th. So we will need to.
But the new pieces that, I mean, most policies, you don't pass them every year.
Right.
The code.
Well, I guess I missed it maybe because it was barraged maybe with the other policies. I for some reason I didn't remember this, and I'm not a fan of separating effective and very highly effective. I'm not a fan of that. And to me, as we were going through the policies with ISBA and the different attorneys that were involved with that, we were commonly referred to eliminate the policy if we have code or statute that addresses it. Well, if statute, the Indiana code is going to say we have to do this, then why do we have the policy?
Because the
code
statute
said-
also says we have to have the
So,
policy.
Yeah.
I mean, so what would happen if we disagreed with the policy if the state's mandating
We
it?
wouldn't get the
You
money.
don't get the money.
So, well, it just bothers me.
I don't
because
disagree with you.
I feel so much of the evaluations of our staff, even though you try to make them non-objective, they are. And,
You mean subjective?
or subjective, I'm sorry, and thank you.
Yeah, I was like, I knew what you
but-
meant.
And to sit there and say, as a teacher, we want you to be effective and highly effective, sometimes that, I just think we should award them all the same, so.
And that's why we try to.
This really bothers me.
And that's why we go with the minimum required by law, of it, that you can do by law.
So, I guess I should tell my legislators that if they're going
Please
to
do.
pass
I would say absolutely.
statute that
Yeah.
takes the decision out of our hands, then why do we even need more policy?
Well,
Because it makes it look like we're the bad
Because,
guys.
well, but because you could make it more than 25%.
Yeah, you don't have to follow the minimum.
Yeah, we choose to follow the minimum, but you could make it 50% difference between the two.
I just,
It was better when it was $1.
well, it should be $1. I mean, if
Yeah.
there has to be a difference, then
But
a
the state
penny would
changed
be
it,
fine with
so
me, but.
now you don't have any choice.
Yeah.
Correct.
So you don't really need action tonight, but if we don't,
Well, the
basically-
statute also says it's a discussable item, but that the teachers have no choice. So I don't even know why they're even it says you have to take it to discussion, but they have no choice in the matter, so.
They could
To
choose
raise
to
it.
make it higher than 25%.
I don't see-
mean,
I don't think they're
that's-
gonna
we
do
could
that.
discuss that, we could discuss that, but.
So,
And all the concerns you bring up are not concerns that we don't have as well. I mean, we agree with you, and our conversations with Ms. McDermott have been along those lines as well, so.
so keeping it at the minimum is what? That's our only,
I think the bigger
Recourse
fight
at
with
this
the teacher appreciation grant is if the state decides to keep it or not. I mean, there's talk out there about it going away totally, which.
well, what's the total amount? Is it like $100 a teacher or something? Is it, not even that high, is it?
And it depends on each district is a little bit different. There's a calculation that you go through with it, and,
Seems like last year it was like $50 or $75. It wasn't very
Oh,
much.
it was a lot more than that.
Was it?
Yeah, we received over $100,000 for that
I
grant, I
think it's
last year.
$30, as the statute reads now, it's $30 for
Student,
ADM.
right, mhm.
so,
So it could be the same thing, 150,000. That's,
sizable chunk.
it is a sizable
so
jump.
it's called suck it up and get the grant. I guess. And call your legislator.
And call your
Well, but that
legislator.
also forces you to, in my opinion, that also forces you as a evaluator to make them all highly effective, whether they are or not.
I would, I see what you're saying. That would be some pressure, sure.
Or the other way around. I
Or the
guess.
other way around.
Okay,
All right.
I'll get get off my soapbox.
It's not just yours, for sure.
Could Jennifer possibly forward the percentages in every category for the teacher ranking in an email?
As far as how many teachers were
Just the-
effective, highly
yes.
effective?
We don't know yet that we haven't finalized evaluations.
When it
Ron,
comes out, can
We
you
have to,
do that? Or from last
Ron,
year?
what did you say the
Yes, we
dollar
changed that.
figure was per EDM?
$30.
We hope it'll be finalized
Okay.
October-ish,
School corporation.
depending on school grades.
So is that money released once we turn in our teacher evaluations, who's effective and who's highly effective, or do we get a lump sum and we
It's
divvy it out?
released when we get the money, first and foremost, because sometimes they don't come at the same time. And so sometimes we'll have the documentation, to put everybody in the correct category, a few weeks before we get the funds. Sometimes the funds come first and then we get the information. So we're just at the mercy of the state. We get it out as quickly as we can as soon as that happens. Usually it's around the Christmas break time when we get it and when we distribute it. Just happened to fall that way the last couple of years. So
Statute
there's
says it should be
no-
by December 5th unless the department finds that there are extenuating circumstances and they can waive that deadline that they impose on themselves.
So
Correct.
I guess I'm just curious on how this works, and maybe I'm just totally missing something here, but if we're given a set amount of dollars, and we have 80% of our teachers are highly effective and 20% are effective. Or let's flip that. I mean, does the amount of the stipend or bonus, whatever the teachers want to call it, receive from it, that fluctuates depending on how many are effective or
Correct.
highly effective?
Correct. We get the dollar amount set aside of $30 per ADM, so we get a total. And then dependent upon how many effective and highly effective teachers qualify, then that disbursement is calculated based on the total number of qualifiers. And then we have to make sure that as a part of that calculation that those that are highly effective are at the 25% above the effective level. So it's this fairly lengthy process that we have to go through to make sure that those calculations are balanced. It does include all of the associated benefits that come along with those dollars, and then we have to spend 100% of those funds that we receive from the state. So usually we have to spend just a couple of dollars over that's covered somewhere else, usually general fund, because you cannot spend less than that. So we have to make sure that that threshold is hit, because that's also a part of other audit processes. So 100% of those funds come in. I believe we have 20 business days to distribute those funds, so the calculation and everything has to be done. We have to have time to get it to direct deposit, all within that 20-day window. And we have met that. We've actually met that a little early every year. So it's
The
all
good news is it's a total pot, so.
right.
Right.
So as soon as they take the ones that don't meet the effective category out, then it's, whatever that pot is, it's divided amongst them.
Right. And it is so regulated that there is no room for us to do anything but what is written.
It really is kind of insane. All right. So
So we'll bring that back to you next board meeting after we take it to discussion a week from tonight for approval.
Very good. Okay, we are actually at our bell ringer already.
Yes. Our bell ringer tonight, we just want to recognize all of our fall athletes at every level. They're doing a great job, great atmosphere Friday night at the football game and then last night at the volleyball game here at home. And also want to especially recognize girls golf and boys tennis. They're both undefeated in dual matches. So congratulations to them, and we appreciate the extra work that our students and coaches are putting forth. Great job.
Very good. So we are adjourned to our executive session.